Need all units to respond to the Showboat Branson Bell.
No, these poor people.
How did you make it out?
I don't know.
I felt like if I was able to get a life jacket, I could have saved my babies. Because they could have at least floated up to the top and somebody could have grabbed them. And I wasn't able to do that.
1 year later, it's still just simply awful to watch that, to think about what happened. The Table Rock Lake duck boat accident is one of the deadliest U.S. boating tragedies in recent history and has drawn national attention to the Southwest Missouri tourist town.
Now, 1 year later, the tragic night is still raw in many people's minds. And that includes the crews who arrived on scene that night. Our Abigail James went to Branson to hear their firsthand account.
It's a night they wish they could forget. And for many of the first responders that were there the night of the duck boat sinking on Table Rock Lake, talking about it is still difficult 1 year later.
When did it sink in what was happening?
Can't say it ever sunk in until the next day.
Gene Wahey with the Western Taney County Fire Protection District was one of the divers.
Originally went down on the side here, then rolled down the hill. So as we had divers in the water, it was actually moving.
He said when the duck boat went down, it stirred up the water, making it very murky.
Visibility top of the wire was about 2 feet. Down at the bottom, we were almost zero visibility.
But then, at 55 feet down,
That's when we started finding all kinds of shoes, bags, clothing. That's when we started finding the victims and bringing them up one at a time.
now the viral video of the duck boat struggling in the water was actually taken out of this window right here on the end of the Branson Bell. And where the duck boat went down in the water was just 200 feet away from the exit ramp right over here.
What we really train for and what we really want to do is rescue people, not recover bodies. And this is very hard on first responders that arrive on these kind of calls.
Chris Barrett is the chief of Western Taney County Fire. He said when they first arrived on scene, it wasn't clear what was happening.
Because it seemed like everybody was wet.
Workers from the Branson Bell, civilians, and personnel with the State Park Marina had jumped in to help. He says some people were even climbing onto the paddle wheels on the back of the Branson Bell.
It was total chaos. It was at first very confusing who were actually the victims were. And it took us some time to realize that several of these people were missing.
They recovered 3 bodies, 1 child and 2 adults, before dive operations were turned over to the Missouri State Highway Patrol. Wahey was the one who worked on Tia Coleman when she was pulled out of the water. Coleman lost 9 family members, including her husband and 3 children, on that tragic day.
Didn't understand what happened. She was mostly having difficulties with herself because she took in so much water.
Helping people in the worst of times is what first responders train for, though the nightmare from this night is one that still weighs on the shoulders of many.
A mass casualty with us, people injured and stuff, that's one thing. A fatality with 17 dead, that's something different.
Abigail James, KCTV5 News.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, your heart goes out to just everybody involved and the first responders who are affected for the rest of their lives as well.
It was horrifying on every single level. What a terrible, terrible, terrible day in Branson, Missouri. It won't be forgotten.
Yeah,
Ever.
no, it won't. Now, Tia Coleman, the woman who lost nearly her entire family, decided not to go on camera this year and talk about what happened, but she did say this about the loss through a statement. I draw hope and energy from their memory to fight to ban dangerous death-trap duck boats like the one that killed my family and the others.
Ripley Entertainment said today, we know we can never fully understand the pain and challenges the families who were affected by the accident have faced, but Ripley Entertainment has worked hard to offer help wherever we can. We are deeply committed to supporting these families.
KCTV5 also talked to the mayor of Branson, Ed Akers, about why 1 year later, there still are no memorials planned for the victims. We will have the interview on our website, actually right now, in fact, at kctv5.com.
So, Gary, you were tracking the storm that night, and that was just a fast-moving storm.
Well, it was. I'll never forget that storm now. Now, normally, a year later, I would completely forget about it. It was a severe storm, and it was a severe storm in our area, too. Here's a look at the path of that storm with the with this complex of storms that developed northwest of Kansas City, they pushed by to the southwest, and then they started arcing more toward the south in a direct line towards Branson. Now, I did hear some reports that said they didn't know the storm was coming. Now, maybe they didn't, but that storm lasted 7 hours, and it was severe the entire track as it moved across our viewing area and then down into Branson. If you didn't know that storm was coming, you just didn't, you weren't paying attention, because again, that storm, it took 7 hours to go from here down into Branson on that path.